All right, we're live. Ross, welcome in. You, my friend, got out of the negative territory in this segment, so congratulations. Let's keep that rolling.
hmm
But how are you doing on this brisk Sunday morning?
Feel good. We're getting into the holiday season. I'm shocked that December is here. I made a comment to my wife yesterday that it feels like we're going to wake up tomorrow. It's just going to be Christmas, and then after that, 2022 is over.
Yeah, we're going to be talking playoff football,
Yeah.
and we're going to be out of the season. We're going to be talking draft, like, right? I mean, it's just going to happen so fast. We
hmm
wait so long every year for football. It is a
hmm
long season, but
Yes.
it's just over before you know it because of all the things that we do, and
Yeah.
everything goes fast.
From a betting standpoint, though, Wild Card Weekend is my favorite weekend of the year.
Oh,
I used to make a trip out to Vegas all the time for Wild Card Weekend. So I'm sure we'll have to do a little something around then too. That is, and we get an extra game now. It
you get the
started
extra game,
last
yeah.
year, so I do love betting on Wild Card Weekend.
Yeah, my favorite weekend of football is the next weekend, that
Yeah.
divisional playoff game where you get the best teams all playing.
hmm
That one's that's usually when I go back and hang out with my buddies for the
hmm
weekend, watch all
hmm
the football games, and you know, eat way too many calories and
Yeah.
drink too many calories. Put it that
Yeah.
way, right?
Yeah.
And all that. I am wearing all orange
Yes, sir.
today in honor of our new overlords, the Dutch,
Yeah.
taking out the United States yesterday in the World Cup.
Yeah.
Uh, the L'Orange,
Yeah.
so good on the Netherlands.
Absolutely.
I was
I'm wearing a I'm wearing a Saget shirt that's Street Fighter. I
nice.
forget I forget where he was from. I think he was like from Croatia or something.
Okay, well, directional.
Yeah.
So, all right. Interesting board today. I think there are some plays that I like, but I'm
Mhm.
interested to see where you want to start us off.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going back to the well again. My Jaguars. I can't quit these guys. I love these guys. I bet on them a few times. I take a couple weeks off. I come back to them. Listen, I think Trevor Lawrence right now is playing outstanding football. I think that he's really got that passing game running. I was a little bit worried about Etienne last week with that foot injury, but it looks like he is a go today. I did bet him on an anytime touchdown today on some action, along with Jamal Williams, but I like the Jaguars today on the road against the Lions. I know that the Lions are playing hot football right now. I know this line is only +1. I don't feel good about it, so I'm only putting a blue chip on there. But give me the Jaguars today +1 against the Lions. I just feel like that. Listen, that AFC South is I don't know. It's kind of a weird division. If they win that football game today, some weird things start to happen down the stretch here. I want a little chaos. I want the Jaguars to win. I feel it a little bit. I know it's weird.
I'm gonna go against you. I'm gonna
Yeah,
go against
do
you.
it.
One of my bets today was the Lions. Like I think that the Lions are starting to show what I thought they would show in the beginning of the year. I thought that they would be competitive, kind of fun.
Mhm,
I thought that they would be second best team in the NFC North,
mhm.
and I think that they're establishing that. And
Yep,
so it took a while. It took
yep,
a while to get going. They look like
mhm,
same old Lions, but I think
mhm,
that they're getting there. And I think this is a really good spot for them to beat a team that they can beat at
yeah,
home. And this is basically a pick 'em game.
mhm,
So give me the Lions -1. I'm going to go on the opposite side of you.
yeah,
My favorite bet this week, I think, is the afternoon game. We were talking before we started that there's some
mhm,
good afternoon games,
mhm,
and trying to time my workout. And for me, it's the Dolphins at the Niners. Now we talked about the Niners a lot. Like they instantly, once they started getting things clicking,
mhm,
they instantly got the love of the books. And so they've been playing with some big lines. And you look at Kyle Shanahan playing with as the favorite. He actually doesn't have a great record
mhm,
as a favorite, but a little better as being an underdog. Dolphins traveling to San Francisco or Santa Clara, wherever the heck they play their football
sure,
games. I don't know. That doesn't bother me. It's not like a West Coast team traveling east for a noon game, right?
mhm,
There's nothing weird there. There's no
mhm,
weird weather stuff. I don't understand. I don't think the Dolphins are 4.5 points worse than the Niners. I know that
yeah.
we like the Niners and all that kind of stuff, but they're at least going to keep this one close in my mind. So for me, 4.5, way too much. I think they keep it close, and I think they can win this one.
Yeah, this feels a lot to me like a mentor versus pupil line, right? Like this
Hmm.
is like Shanahan knows Mike McDaniel more, and D'Amico Ryans might know what Mike McDaniel is going to run and stuff like that, and maybe they try and throw the kitchen sink at Tua. I like the points in this game. I like some offense in this game. I think both teams are going to be able to score. I'm going to put a blue chip on the over at the 45.5. Miami has been an awesome first half team all year long. They've been able to put some points up all year long. If you're like kind of looking at that line, I would definitely be all in on the first half with the Dolphins because I'm pretty sure it's going to be about the same thing, plus 4.5. But I like both teams to put some points on the board today. You put those receivers out there in Debo and McCaffrey and Waddle and Hill. I think we get some points today out there in Santa Clara. I like shootouts in both of these in two of these afternoon games today, which I'm kind of tipping my hand with the other bet that I like.
Well, just hit it.
Yeah, listen, over 53.5, over 53 today, Chiefs Bengals. I love this football game. I'm put an orange chip on there. This is my favorite game in the week. I feel like this is kind of all eyes on these two teams on this game today. You're in Cincinnati. Mahomes, congrats to him. He just had his son. Bronze, Patrick Mahomes Part 3 is here. But I think that he's going to want to send a message today to the Bengals because they beat them last year in the AFC Championship game that we are the best team in the AFC. But on the flip side of that, I love Joe Burrow, and nobody's playing better football right now than Joe Burrow, and he gets Jamar Chase back this week. I think we're going to get a lot of points today in Cincinnati. I like the over. I like this game to be a shootout, something like 31-30 or something like that. And whoever has the ball last is going to win this game.
Yeah, it feels like Chiefs like to play those football games, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they feel like, okay, we'll get in shootouts with you. So
Mhm.
they feel it's more uncomfortable for them if they're playing low scoring games. And
Mhm.
they get Eric Smith's opinion at some point on his Bengals and see if they can control this Mahomes attack. But I don't think anybody can, right? I mean,
No.
so yeah, I think points make sense there. I'll just continue down the line here. This game here, I'm still not convinced on the Raiders. I know that the Chargers don't seem like a very good football team right now.
Mhm.
But I don't think that they should be giving up 2.5 points on the road to the Raiders. I don't really see that. I think they're the better football team than the
Mhm.
Raiders, and so I don't see 2.5 points making any sense. I think they probably win this football game. I don't feel super confident because I don't think you can feel super confident about the Chargers.
Mhm.
Um, Josh Jacobs is tearing it up right now, and the Chargers can't stop the run game. So if you want to make an argument the other way, it starts with that.
Mhm.
But I'm still going to take Justin Herbert. I'm still going to take this more talented Chargers club if they're underdogs against a team like the Raiders, who can just come out and score no points randomly, right? Like this is not a team that has all the pieces moving in the right direction for them. So I'll take a surprise underdog on the road.
Yeah, that's a very weird line. Those are two very weird football teams. Just the Raiders have underachieved all year. The Chargers are super ravaged right now with injuries. I'm going to take it to the NFC East. And listen, I think the Giants right now are kind of falling apart. I think Saquon Barkley is a little banged up. He doesn't look like quite the same guy. I think the Daniel Jones gimmicky stuff has kind of worn off, and he's not quite the runner that he was at the season. They can't really throw the football. I like this Commanders team a lot. I'm actually going to put an orange chip that they kind of put the Giants out of their misery today at the -2. I think they're the better football team. This is a divisional game, and they're favorites on the road. But I still like them. I think they're a good team. I think they run the ball well. Brian Robinson has been looking really good as he's kind of gotten up to speed after getting shot earlier in the year. And now he's looking like an awesome rookie. And Taylor Heineke's playing good football. And they've got a good defense. So I think they'll be able to take care of the Giants today. I like them a lot, -2 on the road.
I'm joining you. One of my favorite
Yes.
bets this week. -2 isn't enough because you can win that bet with just a field goal win. I think the Commanders are a better team. I don't think we would have said that if they were still starting Carson Wentz
Mhm.
necessarily and still going down that pain train that they were headed down. But I don't know. They're a pretty impressive football team. If you watch this team, they seem to be really solid. Ron
Mhm.
Rivera is a pretty good football coach, and people are starting to give him a little bit of buzz for Coach of the Year. So good
Mhm.
on him. Good guy, obviously former '85 Chicago Bear and former Bears defensive coordinator. We love Ron. So
Absolutely.
good for him for stabilizing at least the football side of that organization. I don't know about the rest of it.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Let's see. Game above it. The New
Yes.
York Football Jets,
I like
3-point underdogs on
I
the
like
road.
it. I like it.
Um, I like the Jets. I like the
Yes.
Mike White experience,
There you go.
and I don't know that you're going to get the one game spike that you got last year, where Mike White was a revelation, and then after that he was not. Looks like he's making the most of his second chances. Looked pretty good last week against the Bears. I know the Bears are bad. Do you know who else is bad at defense?
The
Minnesota
Vikings.
Vikings.
Yeah.
They're not very good at defense either. And so I think that could be interesting. I'm going to put a blue chip on it. So I'm going to take the Jets +3 on the road. I think that they're making a run here. This is a legitimate wild card football team right now, and these are the kinds of games that they can win. Or if they can win, that really proves out that they deserve to be there. And so I think that they're a fun underdog to take on the money line. So I'm certainly going to take them at +3.
I have already taken them on the money line today, so I'm joining you with a blue chip on that +3. That's one of my favorite bets of the week. I like this Jets team. I think they're a very good, complete football team. I think Mike White gives them a little bit of juice. They're all showing up today in the game wearing Mike White t-shirts, or they showed up at the flight yesterday wearing Mike White t-shirts. They love this guy. They hated Zach Wilson. I feel like their record would be a lot better if Mike White was starting all season long and not Zach Wilson. And you look at that Vikings team, and it's kind of fool's gold. They're like 22nd in DVOA, and just the numbers don't quite match the record a little bit. I don't think they're a very good football team. I just think they're getting a little bit lucky, and we get one of these teams every year. So I like the Jets a lot today on the road +3. I can absolutely see them upsetting them.
Could be fun. Do you want to talk about Bears?
I do want to talk about the Bears. I like a little something in this game. Yeah.
Okay, so for me. So I'm using the 4.5 line, which is what I saw on one book. I had opened up my book yesterday when I was doing the preview show with Robert, and the line was at 3. So I don't know what you're getting. Obviously check and see if you have multiple books. Take the better line if this line's been moving. I think it opened at 4.5, and I think that it moved to 3 once Fields was announced that he was going to play. That makes sense to me. If they would have announced it, it would have been Nathan Peterman, because Trevor Siemian is out for the year with that oblique injury. If it would have been Peterman, I think it would have moved to 7.5. I think it would have moved way far in the other direction. So if you're into this line, if you can get good marks on this line, over a field goal, I think go for it, because Fields, has the potential to keep them competitive. For me, I like the over-under. I like points in this game. I think that the Bears can run the football on the Packers, and I think the Packers are going to be able to pretty much do whatever they want against the Bears defense. I know that they haven't looked crisp. I know that Rodgers has not, been his typical MVP last couple of years self. But for me, I'm gonna be pretty confident about it. I'm gonna put the over 44.5, because I think Fields can account for a few touchdowns, and I think Green Bay is going to score pretty much at will. That's not a big number. I feel like that number should be like 50, but there's just not confidence in. I don't know. There's just not confidence in both offenses enough, but I think both defenses are going to relent enough to give up some points here. Over 44.5.
I like the exact same thing. I have the exact same bet as you, orange chip, 44.5. I don't know why that line is so low. It's a beautiful day today in Chicago. It's going to be 40 degrees. The sun is shining. These are two bad defenses. These are two not very good football teams. There are 4 guys I really like in this football game today. It's Christian Watson. It's Aaron Jones. It's David Montgomery. It's Chase Claypool. I feel like all 4 of those guys should be able to do something in this football game, and I wouldn't be surprised if all 4 got in the end zone today.
I like it. What else you got?
I'm kind of looking at that Seahawks and Rams game, and I'm staying away from rest in peace Matt Stafford, who's on IR now. He's got a concussion. I start to wonder if we'll ever see him even play football again. I know his wife has kind of hinted at that, but I kind of like the under in this football game at 40.5. I would put a blue chip on that. This just feels like an ugly 17-3. 15-10 ball game, something like that. It just feels like an old, ugly game. It's going to be a dead vibe in that stadium. People in LA don't care about football. And then now that Matthew Stafford and Cooper Kupp are out for the year, they really don't care about football in LA. And it's just going to feel like a library in that stadium. And I think both these teams are going to struggle to score points. I think even Seattle, the kind of buzz is wearing off just a little bit on them as well. And I like the under.
Yeah, same thing. Once you said that game, I'm like, I have nothing to do with that line. I don't want anything to do with that line, because I don't really know what to expect. Obviously, Seattle's a better football team right now because the Rams are bad. But right now, you think that it's just going to be a lot of punting, a lot of runs from Kenneth Walker, right?
Mhm.
And it just kind of feels like Pete Carroll's just going to be content to grind this out. And this, the total points in this game are going to like sit in the 20s, right? It just
Mhm.
doesn't feel like there's going to be a lot of points. And of course, in a few hours, we'll be talking about how there was 65 points in this game and it came out of nowhere. I get that. Over-unders are
Right.
tough. I don't love to put a ton into over-unders, but sometimes you just have a sense of the game flow. And I agree with you there. I think that I want to leave it there. There's a couple of, unless you have any more.
I'm done. That 4.5 with the Titans was enticing. It
Yeah,
was enticing because I
that's the
like
only
Mike
other one that
Vrabel
I
a
wanted to
lot.
talk about.
Yeah, I like Mike Vrabel a lot. I'm going to stay away from it, but boy, it looks very appealing because I like them a lot on the road, and I think the Titans are a good football team, and I think this is a prime Eagles might lose a game spot.
The Titans are the team that are not getting respected by the books because
Yeah.
they play ugly football. That's it.
Hmm.
That's it.
Hmm.
And so they are really good against the spread. I think that they're like, I don't know, 7-3 or 8-2 or something like that. Whatever the
Hmm.
record is that lines up with. So probably an extra game there. The last time I saw it, I think it was 7-2. So they might be even better than that. So
Yeah.
they're a good team to bet. The problem is that the Eagles are really good at football, and
Yeah.
so if you could get, I don't know, that's probably the only other one that I was thinking about
I
was
would
with that four.
say, yeah, I would say if you can find somewhere like a first half Titans bet, that might be the play.
Mm,
Is just bet them to keep it close in the first half because I
yep.
think that this is going to be a real you drag them out game. But yep, I agree with you on Titans.
Well, let's move on to our prize picks segment. So
Hmm.
if you're betting with us, or if you haven't yet and you want to try it out, use our promo code Bears, 100% deposit match. Uh, both of us took a dive last week. Rough
Brutal.
one. I had my first two picks last week hit, and then I watched my afternoon games fall. So that
Hmm.
was not fun
Hmm.
because I thought for sure I would at least get the 3 out of 5, but did not happen. So that was a bummer. We have some I always try to stay away from the picks that you have. I try not to double down,
Hmm.
but we have some in the same game. So I'll let
Hmm.
you start off though with a quarterback bet.
Yeah, listen, I think Kenny Pickett's playing better football of late. He's kind of picking it up a little bit. He's getting involved in the running game, and that's getting him into rhythm. I like him today with his passing yards, though. I'm going to take the over. Um, this is a Falcons team that, again, secondary is not good. This defense is not very good. This is kind of a pick 'em line right now. I feel like that both offenses should be able to score a little bit on each other, but I like Kenny Pickett getting into a rhythm. You've got George Pickens on your list later on today. I'm sure you're going to take the over on that. I just think that he's playing better football right now. So 229 passing yards. I think he can get that over.
All right. Yep. Well, let me
That's
do
pretty cool.
this.
You can do that.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Gotta love it. All right. Pickens, like you mentioned, to
Yeah.
me, he's growing. He's becoming a little bit more involved in the offense. 46.5 yards. He can do that in one catch,
Hmm.
right? I mean, this is George
Hmm.
Pickens.
Hmm.
Maybe Kenny Pickett can't throw it 46.5 yards down the field.
Yeah.
So maybe it's two catches, right?
Yeah.
But I think that he's becoming more involved. He's a big playmaker. And Atlanta's secondary is no bueno. They are
It's
not
not
good.
good. It's not
So
good.
this is a bet for a guy on the rise playing a really good opponent. I love those. And so to me, I like the Pickens bet for over 46.5. And then
Yeah.
you got your boy.
My
You got
guy.
stock in Trevor Lawrence.
Listen, if I think they're going to win today, I think it's going to be because he has a big game. I think Trevor Lawrence is a budding superstar in this league. He's starting to prove why he was the number one pick. Take the over today on his passing yards against that Lions defense, against that Lions team. Again, he was still making some throws last week that were just jaw dropping, just absolute jaw dropping last week. And I think that he's really started to turn it on. Both him and Justin Fields are clearly the best quarterbacks of their class, and they're just starting to show it. So I love Trevor Lawrence a lot today and going forward. If you're going to give me that 250 passing yards for him against a Lions team, I'm going to take the over.
Yeah, I like that a lot. Again, Detroit is playing better football, but they're more of a offensive based team. They have not been able to stop people. Lawrence playing better football and starting to have it click. He was
Mhm.
looking good early, and then
Mhm.
kind of took that step back. Again, quarterback growth is not linear. Put some things on tape. Defenses took it away. Now they've evolved. Doug Peterson's put him in a position to succeed. This is a
Mhm.
good football player. 250 yards against the Lions defense is not something that's going to prevent him. Similar pick to my George Pickens bet. Treylon Burks trying to get established here as a
Yeah.
rookie. 42.5 receiving yards against Philly. You would think that to win this football game, Tennessee's probably going to have to at least put the ball in the air a little bit here.
Mhm.
Treylon Burks is becoming to me, he's becoming their number one option,
Yeah.
their best option for an explosive play, certainly. And he is hitting these marks lately, right? So when
Mhm.
he's been given these opportunities, fully healthy, he's clearing the marks easily enough. Again, the books haven't caught up to that. It's a good football team that they're playing. Maybe
Mhm.
they find a way to try to take away Treylon Burks, but you can't really do that against Tennessee when you have Derrick Henry running the football. So to me, just keep taking this until they move that line up and give him more respect.
He makes like 2 or 3 catches a game where you're just like, wow, how did he make that catch? And so, yeah, you're right. He's definitely an emerging number one option for them. You thought it would be Robert Woods heading into the year, but he's still not quite healthy coming off that knee injury. So Treylon Burks having a great rookie season. My next one is more like a please bet. Like I'm willing it forward.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
The
Putting it
Bears
out
have
in the universe.
the Bears have got to get Chase Claypool going, especially with Darnell Mooney on the IR for the rest of the year. 3 catches. He can't get 4 catches in this football game today with Justin Fields coming back. Take the over today on that. Listen, he has to get into the offense more, right? They have to get him the football. He only had 2 catches last week against the Jets, but that was against Sauce Gardner. That was also in the rain. That was also Trevor Siemian, who didn't have abs anymore. This is Justin Fields back on the football field today. I feel like Chase Claypool should be able to get at least 4 catches today against this Packers team. If not, I think we got serious calls for concerns of what the Bears gave up in the second round pick to get him.
I'm not willing to go there yet because I want
Mm-hmm.
to see him with the full offseason. I want to see him
Mm-hmm.
build that rapport with Justin Fields and all that. I
Mm-hmm.
do think that given Darnell Mooney's absence from this lineup and given that the Bears are going to probably be in a shootout here, we both like the over in that football game,
Mm-hmm.
that they're going to have to throw the ball. And I think there's at least enough volume to go Claypool's way. I certainly like that one. Robert and I highlighted that yesterday.
Yep.
But what I really like is David Montgomery over 68.5 rushing yards. Green Bay can't stop anybody on the ground. If
Mm-hmm.
you want to go Justin Fields rushing yards here, totally understand. He's coming off of an injury. They may be a little more hesitant to call his number as much as they had before that injury. But Dave Montgomery does not have any real competition for carries,
Mm-hmm.
certainly not workload, workhorse back type carries. He's going to get 15
Mm-hmm.
against this Green Bay defense, 68.5. I think he can go over 100. This guy's going to fight for it. If you feel a little more comfortable taking advantage of David Montgomery's rushing plus receiving yards
Mm-hmm.
to give yourself a little bit of a cushion because you feel like they're going to throw him the football.
Mm-hmm.
And Justin Fields has shown that he does like to throw the ball to David Montgomery, and he can do that. I like that bet too. But I think that betting on David Montgomery today is a solid option.
I like it a lot. Absolutely. Like we said, beautiful day today in Soldier Field. The Bears are going to be able to try and establish the run today, especially protecting Justin and that shoulder as they head into the bye week. David Montgomery should get a heavy workload heading into the bye week because, they're going to get us some extra rest. And there's no Khalil Herbert behind him, right? Ebner's not really a good football player. Montgomery should be able to get the bulk of the carries today. I love field goal kicker bets.
I love it.
My guy, Young Hoo Koo, taking the over today on that 1.5 field goals. Hey, listen, both these teams are the Falcons are trying to fight for something. They're kind of in the playoff hunt a little bit. The Steelers aren't, but this feels like one of those smelly bad football games. But I think both offenses are going to be able to move the football on each other, and I like the Falcons a lot to at least get 2 field goals today. Probably not finish some drives, maybe get around the red zone area, but not finish those drives and get 2 field goals today. As long as you give me some of these 1.5 field goal, made for some of these guys, especially with a kicker like Koo, I'm going to take the over on it.
He's a good kicker.
He's a very good kicker.
And he's got a great name. When I was at the Falcons game, every time that he came out, Koo, which is great. It rhymes with boo and all that. All right. Nick Chubb. This bet, right, just continues to cash. Do you know how bad Houston is at stopping running game? Yes. They are terrible. They are the worst in the league. They're 32nd in the league. 94.5 rushing yards seems like a lot, but this is Nick Chubb we're talking about here. Yeah. You would assume that Cleveland's a better football team. You assume that the game flow is going to be in their advantage. You assume that they're going to give Nick Chubb a lot of carries. They also have a change at quarterback this week. We're not going to talk about that BS, but new quarterback. And how much are they really going to be willing to throw? They're probably going to lean on Chubb quite a bit here. I'm betting on all of the things that tell you that Nick Chubb's going to have a good football game. 94.5. I think he could go for 194.5. I mean, like this guy just is set up for a huge game. So give me the Chubb over here.
How many miles do you have to run today?
I don't know. I'll probably run 6.
Yeah, you could do that against the Texans defense.
Yeah,
No
I probably could.
problem.
Well, I could maybe get like 20 yards right
You
now.
could
I
do
couldn't do
that.
shit. But
Absolutely.
all right, what's your last one?
My last one, Devontae Adams. I'm taking the over today on that 0.5 receiving touchdowns. Weird football game. Again, we talked about it earlier. They're favorites. They're at home. I just like points in this football game. I like a good old-fashioned AFC West shootout. And I think that Devontae Adams is going to be able to get into the mix of that. I just think he gets a touchdown today. He's been playing good football. You know, Derek Carr, we don't know what that situation is going to be like going forward next year. He could be a Jet next year. He could be a Colt next year. But for now, the Fresno State connection, I'm still going to bet on them a little bit, and I'm going to take him to get a touchdown today.
I like it. I wanted a touchdown bet as well. I saw that you had a touchdown bet, and so I was looking for a Garrett Wilson touchdown bet because I think he's hot right now. I'm leaning into rookie wide receivers here, and my young wide receiver bet here was Garrett Wilson, and I got a Garrett Wilson plus T.J. Hawkinson, so I get a little bit of bonus here. So if Hawkinson can cover me, if Wilson doesn't get in the end zone, I like these kind of 2-player touchdown bets, kind of fun. I don't know, man. I like the Jets. They're kind of fun. We'll see what happens, but that's my favorite double person touchdown bet here because the Vikings quickly got TJ Hawkinson established too. He's a good football player. He's now on a good football team. He's winning football games, which is weird for him because he's not used to that since coming into the league. So good for him. We got a couple questions before we let you go, Ross.
Yep.
Well, at least Lester's on says Claypool line dropped to 2.5, so even
like
better.
It even more. Like
hit
it even
on
more.
That.
Yes.
Hit on that. So
like it even more.
And then John says if you guys were going to steal one square from the other to make it a pick 6, which one would each of you steal? So which of my bets do you like best, and which of your bets do I like best? I guess is the question. So what would you do?
I would 100% take the Garrett Wilson bet. Nobody hates Zach Wilson more than Garrett Wilson and like kids whose moms he hits on. So I think that Garrett Wilson loves Mike White, and you saw it last week. Much better football player when Zach Wilson is off the football field. I would 100% take that. And TJ Hawkinson loves Kirk Cousins as well. Great trade for the Vikings to be able to get him into that mix.
For me, it's your Trevor Lawrence bet. I think Trevor Lawrence is in for a big game this week. That'll come up here in a couple minutes with Eric Smith. And I think that overall, they're on the upswing. Lions are a bad defense. I still like the Lions in this football game overall, but I do think that there's going to be yards to be had on both sides of the football here. So Trevor Lawrence bet is my favorite of the 2, or of the 5 that you put out.
Absolutely. Love it.
Final thoughts before I let you get out of here?
Nope. I think it's a beautiful day. I think we got some good football games. I like the late games a lot today. Super conflicted. Everybody's been arguing all week about the Bears. Listen, if you saw Jalen Carter play football yesterday for the University of Georgia and what he did, see the forest through the trees. I know we want to beat the Packers today and beat Aaron Rodgers, but Jalen Carter, guys like that kind of elite talent, got to keep your eye on the prize. I hope that we get a big day from Justin Fields. But I wouldn't be upset if we lost by 1 point in a very high-scoring football game if that meant that we can secure a talent like Jalen Carter.
I know it's hard. I guess I would probably put myself more in the camp of there are a lot of quarterbacks that are proving that they deserve to be drafted high, and there are a lot of teams that need quarterbacks. And so I would look at it more from the consolation prize of going through losing at the end of the year is to be able to trade back and get a lot of draft capital to have more players to fill some of these holes, so that you're not talking about Jack Sanborn, who all respect to Jack Sanborn, but Jack Sanborn is like the 3rd best defensive player on the field for the Bears this week. I mean, that's not where you want to be. You want him to be more in that 8, 9, 10 conversation.
He's the average Joe's Gym of linebackers.
Yeah. I'm excited about him, but again, you want him to be the the 9th or 10th best defender on your team, not the 3rd, which he's probably going to be today. So anyway, thank you, Ross. I appreciate it. And
enjoy the games today.
We'll catch you next week.
See you guys.
All right, welcoming in Eric Smith. Eric, how you doing, man?
I'm doing great. This is a fun week. I love like 5 matchups this week. This is awesome. I'm excited.
A lot of fun. We had some fun in the pick segment because there's some good lines. Last week felt off to me, which I mentioned in the beginning, and I just didn't like it. It felt like the lines were right. I felt I liked a lot of the favorites, which kind of meant like I agreed with the books,
Yeah.
which generally is bad for me
Right.
in terms of like getting things right. And so I was down a point. I was down a bet last week, and it is what it is. But
Mhm.
sometimes you can just kind of sense like, I don't really love the board.
Yeah.
But this week there was more stuff that I kind of liked and felt like I saw the game a little differently than the books did. And of course, it's all random. You're flipping weighted coins. But
Right.
you sent me your daily fantasy and you said it was tough this week. I agree with you. But here's the fun thing: we only have one guy in
Right.
common, and he's the quarterback. And I thought I was zagging a little bit, but talk about Trevor Lawrence and why you picked him over some of the more expensive quarterbacks.
Yeah, well, you kind of mentioned the books were right last week for betting. That's kind of how I feel like with FanDuel this week. Like everyone's priced pretty accurately, and I was trying to find value somewhere, and that's one place you can do it. I think everyone is going to be on this Bengals Chiefs game this week as far as DFS goes, and so trying to afford Patrick Mahomes and Joe Burrow can be tricky. Trevor Lawrence gets you a nice discount of $800 just on Burrow, and then obviously Mahomes is more expensive. But he looked awesome last week against the Ravens. We've kind of seen like everything we've wanted to from him this year. He's starting to run a little more using his legs. He's got an awesome arm. Like it's all coming together here. And Detroit's given up the most points to the fantasy position at quarterback, depending on where you're looking. So it's just a really nice matchup. I think that's going to be hopefully a little shootout in the dome in Detroit. And I don't know. He was the most value-based quarterback that I thought could compete with Mahomes and Burrow if they go off. I think Justin Fields is a whole different story. I was a little worried he's not going to get 18 carries this week. If you give me 18 carries from Fields, then he's back in play. But that's kind of how I ended up with Lawrence. It's funny. That's not the player I thought we were going to match on.
Yeah, I told you we matched on one player. Who did you think we were going to match?
I could not get AJ Brown revenge game out of my lineup. Like I know that's not the most statistical based analysis, but like I just kept coming back to him. Like, man, at home against Tennessee, they're getting him a touchdown. We know you can't run real well on Tennessee. I just expect it could be a multi-touchdown game from Brown. But again, revenge game, maybe not the best narrative to be chasing, but it was fun.
That's good. I didn't actually think about that, so that's good. I like that. I thought about trying to. Couldn't afford him because the way that I was building this out, I ran out of money quick because I went premium defense, and I don't even know that that's a premium defense in the Seahawks. I went premium matchup, playing the Rams, and so I hated the cheap defenses. I hated them, and so it just felt like I started building there. And then as I was building, I found a couple of deals at wide receiver that I liked, but then I paid up for the Chubb, right? Nick Chubb, 9,600. It's super expensive. But again, I think his floor today is 100 yards. Like I think he's just going to be gifted 100 yards rushing. I don't know, man. Take it. This is the dream matchup for a guy who is the best pure runner in the league against the worst team stopping the run. They are dreadful. There are some teams that are bad. Houston is dreadful. And so I don't know, man. I had Lawrence in early. I paid for the premium defense, and then I was like, I got to get Chubb. And so the rest of the lineup is just trying to afford Nick Chubb.
And that's kind of how mine was with Travis Kelce, honestly. Like paying up for him at tight end is such a difference. And I was feeling it across the board setting this lineup. Same thing with you on defense. I am not advocating the Bengals are going to shut down the Chiefs here, but they were literally the cheapest defense. You went all the way up to the second most expensive defense. I was doing the same thing. As you scroll up the list, you're like, I don't like this. I don't like this. I don't like this. Like I thought about maybe Vikings at home against the Jets, and you're already up at 4,400 by the time you get up there. So I just kind of threw my hands up and just went with the cheapest option on the board, which I'm not sure that the Bengals should be the cheapest option on the board at home. So it's kind of a punt on defense. Obviously, if you don't like that play, you're probably going to have to spend down in my lineup on running back or on Kelce and go with a different defense. But I was just kind of like, if I don't like my defense anyway, I'm just going to pick the cheapest one. Maybe they get 3 sacks against Mahomes and a turnover. That's kind of where my head was at there.
Well, we each took a running back in the Bears Packers game, but you took the opposite side that I did. I think Montgomery's a really good value here. He's cheaper than Jones. Now he hasn't had as many points per game as Jones, and I understand that. But this is David Montgomery's backfield right now. There's no Khalil Herbert. I think that you have the threat of Fields running, but he's not. I don't think they're going to hit that button quite as often as they did before the injury. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he's back and he's fine, and they feel like they can just go back and run the offense that had established them. Green Bay is really bad at stopping the run. They're actually worse at stopping the run than Chicago is, which is pretty amazing because Chicago is really bad. And so I know that in terms of the fantasy points given up to backs, they're about the same. In terms of yards per game, Green Bay is actually giving up more. And so for me, David Montgomery felt like a pretty good bargain. And I don't know, do you worry a little bit about Dillon getting more work lately cutting into Jones, or do you feel like Jones has established himself as the clear-cut guy?
Yeah, I mean, Dillon's been around all year, so I'm not sure that anything new has happened necessarily. I still think Jones is the most talented player in that offense right now, and they need to get him the ball. So I think it kind of ebbs and flows week to week just because that's the way the NFL is. But I still think if the Packers are trying to win up, put up points, Jones is their best option. So, no, I mean, I agree with you. Montgomery's a great play too. I guess it is kind of a question of how much is Fields going to run? How much is he going to take away from him? How much is he going to check down to Montgomery maybe instead of taking off? So, yeah, this is obviously a great matchup. Packers are giving up the 5th most yards per carry to running backs this year. So Bears are right behind them at 6th, what I'm looking at here. So, yeah, good matchup for both running backs.
And then you took Samaje Perine, which – great name. I mean, but this is just about injury fill-in and a little bit of a bargain, correct?
Yeah, I mean, as of now, I'm actually kind of surprised. It looks like Mixon's going to miss his 2nd straight week with his concussion. So obviously it's a 4:00 game. You got to kind of monitor that. But Perine looked awesome last week. The coaches trust him. He's a bigger back who also is good in pass protection. He steals 3rd down snaps from Joe Mixon anyway. So that the coaches trust him a ton. He's on the field a ton when Mixon is out. So we've seen this passing game check down a lot to the running backs in the red zone. I mean, Perine had his 3-touchdown week receiving. This was kind of, if I'm not going to pay up for the Bengals receivers and I'm not going to take the quarterbacks, I felt like Perine was a nice little cheap drop in because he could just soak up some touchdowns. Everyone's hoping for Higgins or Boyd or Chase to score.
Yeah, I mean, my cheap drop in here was Tyler Boyd. Felt pretty cheap here, 6,300, and I wanted a piece of that game. It's very hard to get into that game because everybody is priced, like you said, priced appropriately, and that meant pretty high. This is the highest over under of the week, as it deserves to be, and so this was a way for me to get in this game without breaking the bank. Again, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, sure, I'd rather have those guys, but Tyler Boyd, guy that can put up yards and get in the end zone, and particularly if the focus is on those 2 big guys, then Boyd can eat. So felt like a good place to get in on that game. You took Christian Kirk to pair with Trevor Lawrence, and I like that play. I just couldn't afford it.
Right. Yeah, I mean, he's had some ups and downs, but he is their most dynamic receiver for Trevor Lawrence. Zay Jones, I kind of thought about him, but the savings weren't quite enough. He gets volume, but I just didn't see him having that blow-up week potential. So, yeah, I like Christian Kirk. Sometimes he gets locked down, but I don't think the Lions are going to be the team to do that. So, otherwise, yeah, just kind of like you said, just kind of finding a way to adjust to spending all this money this week. I dropped in Kyron Williams into my flex spot. I don't like it. I don't like playing anyone in this Rams offense, but for 5,500, he operated as a lead back. Darrell Henderson's in Jacksonville now. There's not a lot of depth there. They're offensive weapons are dropping like flies for the Rams. So someone's got to get the ball. So it's just kind of hoping maybe he gets 5 catches and a touchdown. That's kind of what we're looking at from Williams. He was cheap.
Yeah, I like the Pittsburgh Atlanta game as well to sneaky score some points, just because Atlanta can move the football, and I think I'm trying to make Drake London happen in these segments, right? Like some of these other guys are a little bit more proven, but I like the idea that he could potentially go off here. George Pickens is on the way up. These are kind of, I mean, they're cheap plays for a reason, or cheaper plays for a reason. They haven't necessarily proven that they deserve to be put in your lineup every week, but I like the potential of these guys going off in a game that could just have a ton of points. So I got a player from each side, and then the other wide receiver I liked was Garrett Wilson. I managed to get all 3 of them in. They all cost about the same. Drake London being the cheapest. But I don't know, man. I watched Garrett Wilson up close last week against the Bears. He looks like he's going to be a really good football player. Looks like he's got a connection with Mike White right off the jump of White starting here. So I don't think that the Vikings are a very good defense. And so to me, this was a good play. It's actually one of my favorite plays when I found him for 6,600. So he's in the flex, but he could be my top pick for all those wide receivers for all that's worth.
Yeah, and I actually bounced around that Steelers-Falcons game as well. I watched the Steelers last week for what we saw, so caught that whole game. And I mean, Pickens is awesome, and Kenny Pickett is playing pretty well for a rookie quarterback too.
Yeah.
I don't think a matchup on the road in Atlanta should worry you. So I agree, Pickens is their number one. I keep saying the main problem for Pickens in fantasy is they just need to get him some easier touches. It's very high degree of difficulty right now, but Pickens looks like an awesome receiver. And he's got huge upside against Atlanta. And then Drake London, I mean, it is, Kyle Pitts is out now. We haven't quite seen all that volume consolidate to London, but if we get a game where Atlanta does have to pass a lot, there's a chance that London is going to have a big day. So I know we've kind of been waiting on that all year, but he still looks talented. And maybe one of these weeks, the Falcons will decide to throw the ball a little bit.
Yeah, I'm crossing my fingers.
Yeah.
Anybody else? I mean, Foster Moreau is my only guy we talked about. This is a cheap tight end play with that you're hoping gets a spike. I mean, I'm not in love with it, but decent matchup and probably going to have to throw at least a little bit. It can't all be Josh Jacobs, and you hope that he just gets in the end zone.
No, I mean, he was on my tight end streamer section as far as the Sit Start podcast this week. And I mean, yeah, it's ugly out there at tight end, but he played every snap last week for the Raiders, so he'll be out there. And he was tied on the team with second on the team with 7 targets behind Devontae Adams, of course, and he scored a touchdown last week. So that's kind of why where we're at tight end. That's why I paid up for Kelsey. There's only a couple of them, and then like everyone else is exactly the same. So yeah, I like that Moreau play. And then I was glad to hear you all talk up Claypool a little bit. I kind of fell into him needing a cheap play, but just with Mooney out, someone needs to get the ball here. Fields back. I'm just curious to see what Claypool looks like without Mooney and with Fields playing.
I agree. I think it'll be fun. He doesn't have to do much to make that pay off, right? I mean, like catch maybe one deep ball and get in the end zone, and you feel pretty good about, that play because that's the last play in your lineup. So somebody's got to get something. Right.
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of what it comes down to. All right, let's move on to Survivor. So we've both done well the last 2 weeks, and you've done quite well since week 6. You're streaming green pluses here, which I'm happy for you, right? We want to support each other. This is a little bit of a competition, but still, I'm still happy for you and all that. Here's the thing about this week. I go first, and there's one very obvious play for me to make, and it made it very obvious when I realized that you had not picked them yet. And so, again, there's maybe a little bit of like gamesmanship that we can play here, and just from a straight perspective, if you were in this position and you weren't competing against somebody where they could take away your pick, you might want to save this team for next week. But I am going to take them this week. It's the biggest line on the board. I'm going to take the Cowboys. They are playing the Colts, and they are 10.5-point favorites. They're playing good football. It's the biggest line on the board. I don't know what else to say. I feel confident that they're going to be fine. Now, you haven't taken them yet. So that meant that I didn't make any sense for me to try to save them next week, because you are going to take them next week. I think I could put them in the slot for you right now because they play the Texans, right? Like that's where we're at. But not to spoil next week, but it's like, okay, there's just no point of waiting, right? Like I have to kind of take this team next week because almost certainly you're going to take them, and I'll have to take somebody else anyway. So I'm going to take the Cowboys off the board. Where do you go?
I was hoping I wouldn't have to make this pick. I feel pretty confident that they will win, so it's not even really about the competition, but I think that lands me on the Cleveland Browns in Houston. 7.5-point favorites. I don't know how their quarterback's going to look. He hasn't played in a long time. I get the sense kind of what you mentioned earlier. We've just kind of been ignoring this situation on our podcast. Like, let's just not talk about this, but we're getting to the point where we have to. But even if their quarterback struggles, the Texans are maybe one of the only teams in the league that seem to be quitting. Like Brandon Cooks is out this week with an injury, and he's talked about how upset he is. And this is kind of more about the Texans than it is the Browns here. I do worry a little bit. Like, this is talk about revenge games. This is a big revenge game, and you can certainly see the scenario where the crowd's into it and it's the second quarter and it's tied and you're like, oh no. But Nick Chubb against the Texans, like, I think they will probably ease Watson into this and just run the ball like crazy with Chubb and maybe use Watson's legs a little bit. So really the only other option I considered here was, I guess, the Seahawks on the road against the Rams, just because the Rams are in kind of shutdown mode too. But road game in the division, I just feel a little better going into Houston and squeaking out a win here.
Yeah, I agree with you. That was your only other choice, really. Like you said, you could go on the road, and I was actually kind of curious if you'd do that. It is a weird moment in time, because why wouldn't they have just kept the suspension for one more game and avoided this situation? Like, why did they do this? They could make it any number they wanted. And for them, they obviously looked at the schedule, and for them to say your first game back is going to be against the Texans just seems really, really tone deaf. Like, I mean, you could have just suspended them all year or whatever, but like, that just was bizarre to me. Like, I just don't understand it. So,
I agree.
I think that there could be some weird stuff happening because, you have a guy who hasn't played football in a long time.
Yep.
I don't know what his situation has been in terms of how much practice he's gotten and, the rapport with his wide receivers and all that. But the Cleveland running game against the Texans run defense is enough for me to just say, like, yeah, they're probably going to win that game. Right.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Who knows? That's kind of we'll see. We'll see. It's kind of gross, but it is what it is.
That is what it is. The Texans offense is also really bad. Kyle Allen under center, no Brandon Cooks. Like, unless they can get Dameon Pierce rolling, and this is a bad Browns run defense, like, what are the Texans doing on offense? So you just cross your fingers on that one, get through it. Because I don't know when else I'm going to take the Browns this year. We'll see if they get rolling, but let's get it out of the way.
No, I think you got to. So, all right, good to that. And that probably would have been what I would have had to do had I been trying to play if you would have taken the Cowboys a few weeks ago or something. I might have tried to do that, but once I realized you hadn't had the Cowboys, I was like, yeah. And like I said, next week you're going to get the first pick, and you'll have Cowboys at home against Texans. I mean, I think that one's almost penciled in at this point.
Yeah,
so,
all
right, fantasy. I need to win this week. I need to win. We're at the point of the year where it's like, boy, I really need to win this week. And I think you feel that way in almost every league, unless you're just out of it, or unless somehow you like just screamed out to the, to an early lead. I'm in second place. I've got 3 games left in my league before the playoff starts. I've got next week is a easier matchup. It doesn't mean anything in fantasy, but I play a not so good team next week, and I've got the first place team in week 15. And this week I'm playing a team he's fourth place or something like that, but like points wise he's more like 6 or 7. So this is a game that I should win, but I really need it. I can't stub my toe here, because we're getting to the point where I could get knocked out if I stub my toe. So what is going on in fantasy that I need to know about as we get into this?
Oh, it's the time of the year where we spend a lot of time on our Wednesday night sit start podcast breaking down running back injuries, and then news comes out later in the week that just kind of throws a wrinkle in all of it. So there's a lot of gross backfields we're trying to figure out this week. Like, it looks like Najee Harris is playing for the Steelers all of a sudden. So I thought he was going to be out this week. Jalen Warren's coming back, so that's a little bit of a mess. The Jets have that situation where Michael Carter's out. Zonovan Knight looked really good last week, and we thought we could stream him, but now they're saying James Robinson might be healthy and active, and maybe a 3-way split here with Ty Johnson. Travis Etienne is playing, it looks like, for the Jaguars, so that is nice. That's one that cleared up a little bit. That's kind of what we spent a lot of time on this week, was looking through some of these messy backfields and figuring out if we could start any of them or not. So I don't know if you have any specific questions this week, or if you want me to just kind of go with some of the research I did, but let me know.
All right. Well, let's just Kenneth Walker's in my lineup for sure.
Yes, absolutely.
I sat Devin Singletary, who ended up spiking a touchdown, but I still feel like it was the right call to bench him against New England's defense, who's pretty solid. So I did not play Singletary. So my options are, I need at least one: Brian Robinson against the Giants. Swift against Jacksonville, who has been coming back,
Yep.
and then Raheem Mostert against the Niners. So right now I have Robinson in the RB2 spot, and I have Swift in the flex, and I have Mostert on the bench.
That's how I would do it. I suppose there's a little bit of a revenge game narrative here for Mostert too, playing against San Francisco. But I first game back from an injury, I think I'd probably take it easy on him. We already saw Jeff Wilson working his way back anyway, or working his way ahead of Mostert anyway. So that's how I would have it. Swift is an interesting one because he's finally off the injury report for the first time since week 1.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if it matters. Like, I don't know what's going on with him and if they just think he's better in a smaller role and, they want to mix in the 2 other backs. So there may be reason for optimism here with Swift. It's just kind of, I'll believe it when I see it at this point. So I have both him and Robinson pretty similarly ranked. So yeah, that's how I would have it. I think they're both solid plays this week.
The only other option that I would have for Swift in the flex would be Berckes, who I like, and Cortland Sutton, who I like as a person, but I do not like in this offense. So that's where I'm at, and it's a standard league, so it's tough to just say wide receiver. And even if it wasn't, you get the PPR with Swift, and I feel like there's going to be points in that one. So I feel like Swift is the safer play over Berckes, but you could convince me otherwise.
I think I agree with that. Swift has still been scoring touchdowns to kind of salvage his production. The Lions just give all their touchdowns to the running backs, so it's like it's either him or Jamal Williams, it seems like, getting them. But I would agree with that. Like, that Broncos offense is just so ugly. We talked about it on the podcast too, where like we feel like we should have Sutton ranked higher because there's nobody else there to get the ball, and we just can't do it. It's just that offense is so bad. They're 28th in EPA per play this year. Kendall Hinton, I think, had just as many targets as Sutton last week. So it's not like he's getting all the work anyway. So I agree with you. Berckes, I love Berckes. I worry a little bit with this matchup. Those are a couple good corners he's going against. And they're playing the Eagles. Yeah, playing the Eagles this week. And I worry a little bit. He's looked really good, but he's a young receiver. He's a little raw. Does he get locked down by a couple of these veteran corners? And it's just all Derrick Henry in this one. So you could go either way. But yeah, I think in a standard league, that probably swings it to Swift, get him in the end zone.
And that's it, man. I mean, I'm counting on Burrow to take me home here. Burrow to T. Higgins would be very nice, and let's get some Justin Jefferson. All right, I mean, lean on your stars, and let's see if we can get this done. He already had Josh Allen and Gabriel and Ramondre Stevenson. So he put up like 85% of expected points from those 3 players. So he's down a little bit in terms of projection. So hopefully I can take advantage.
And that was one thing I was going to mention in the FanDuel section of this, is that the top 3 receivers in price this week, I believe, are Tyreek Hill against San Francisco, tough matchup. Jamar Chase, who's got the questionable, notification next to him. People a little worried about his health. And then Justin Jefferson playing Sauce Gardner and the Jets. Those are 3 tough matchups. Those are the 3 most expensive, but we know those 3 receivers can go off in any single matchup. So that might be a good way in FanDuel. I know it's hard to fit everyone in this week, but you might get some people staying away from those 3 guys, and playing Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson is usually a good thing. So that's a nice little wrinkle this week, I think, with the way the lineups are, is that you might be able to get a lower rostership percentage.
Yeah, absolutely. That makes sense. So, I mean, that's, for me, it's pretty straightforward. I think I kind of got it figured out. Once I benched Singletary, which was not easy for me to do because I do like him, but it just did not like the matchup. Ended up scoring the touchdown. But, if I end up losing by, 4 points, it is what it is. That's fantasy. But what else? What else should we think about at this point? I mean, again, we kind of keep creeping closer to the playoffs. We talked about the defense last week, where you maybe start to kind of look at playoff defenses if you can afford to do that, and try to pull some teams onto your roster. Maybe get rid of that wide receiver 6 that you don't need. The bye weeks are almost over. There's 2 teams on bye this week. I think is there 4 on bye next week? And then it's over. And so, I mean, we're getting there. Like, we're getting close where you don't have to worry about bye weeks. That doesn't make any sense. I'm looking at Yahoo. I have the schedule pulled up in Yahoo, and they have 5 teams have bye weeks next week. That's not possible. It has to be an even number. So Yahoo has something wrong there.
Yeah, but we still got some left for sure. So, I think this week probably on our Sit Start podcast, we're going to have some playoff preview talk as far as fantasy football. Oh, sorry, did you figure that out?
No, I get it. So on the app, it like there's the 5 teams on bye, if you can see that, and then because I'm a Bears fan, the Bears are always up at the top. And it
Gotcha.
says bye week Bears. So anyway, yes, they have 6. I was like, that doesn't make any sense. So next week's a big bye week. There was only one other bye week, I think, this year that had 6 teams on bye. So this is another super bye, and they made people wait until week 14. It's just bad schedule planning. I don't think I realized that when the schedule came out, but making 6 teams wait till week 14 to take their bye week is just, it's criminal.
I think Thanksgiving, they don't give anyone a bye, and then
Right.
probably some of these overseas games throw some scheduling stuff off, and it's kind of ridiculous. But I mean, we're going to start talking about playoff prep pretty soon, probably this week on the podcast. And I mean, like you said, one more week of buys left. So if you can look ahead to next week's schedule and you don't think you're going to need some of these bench players and you don't think they have upside, now would be the time to go pick up a second tight end or second quarterback or a second defense, because now we're kind of looking for your starting lineup and then some upside plays. And if you have a guy just sitting on the bench who's like a safe plug-in, but he's not going anywhere, now might be a time to move on and get some depth for the playoff run, because we are getting very close here and it's exciting.
How do you construct the playoff lineup? Like, what does that mean to you? You just said go out and take a backup tight end. So like what's your ideal roster look like in terms of what you're taking into the playoffs?
Well, you don't have, I would say get a second tight end if you're playing like a Hayden Hurst type every week, or you're bouncing in and out of streamers, maybe give yourself a little more depth. It's just like we kind of talked about a little bit last week, but do you need that wide receiver 6 if you can shore up like your defense for the first 3 weeks of the playoffs or something? Then you don't have to fight for the waivers on them, just stuff like that. Now is the time where, let's see, I'm trying to think of a quarterback that would make sense, but during the regular season, you might be more willing to just roll with the same quarterback every week. Like, let's say Trevor Lawrence. You might be just more willing to just have Trevor Lawrence. He's playing well. Just stick with him. Now might be the time of the year where you look ahead and you piece that together. He's got Dallas and the Jets week 15 and 16. So it's like, okay, who can I pair with him? I trust him. I think he's a good quarterback, but I probably could use a better option those weeks. So that's what I'm looking at. Maybe like a Dak Prescott type. Like, who can I mix in with him? Good matchups, bad matchups. You're not going to worry about it with Josh Allen or with Travis Kelce on tight ends, but just kind of if you have those lower tight end 1, QB1 options, just look for a complement so you can kind of get like a top 5 option every week.
Yeah, I mean, I have Joe Burrow and Justin Fields, so I mean, perfect. I have 2 top 5 options, right?
Yeah, exactly. Just gotta get Fields healthy and running like crazy. And I kind of wonder, would they really put him on the field and tell him not to run? Like, I'd be surprised if we don't see 10 carries from Fields again today.
I just don't know if it's as frequent as it was. I think that maybe it's a little, they pull it back a little bit, but I think, and if for some, I doubt anybody drop Justin Fields, but if for some reason he's out there, he plays, the Bears play Detroit in week 17. Like that's going to be a huge moment for you guys in fantasy world to be like, this guy might be the number 1 overall quarterback in championship week. Like, assuming he can get healthy, like this, against Detroit's defense that would be in Detroit. Like, so you don't have to worry about weather.
Yeah. Sounds good to
me. Right?
I
mean, I don't think it's in Chicago. Maybe it is. God, I'm at the point of the year where I can't keep anything in my head. No, it's in Detroit. So I'm hopeful that's going to be a lot of fun. So I don't have any specific questions, nothing in the chat this week for specific start sits. So how about you? I saw that you are doing well in the Scott Fish Bowl.
Oh, yeah. I am, 30 something overall. There's thousands of teams in this thing. So if anyone doesn't know, it's a big industry wide, thousands of teams, a bunch of leagues that link up and then kind of go into a big playoff format at the end. There's analysts, there's fans. It all goes to charity. It's a free league, but everyone donates. So it's a really great cause. And my team is killing it. It's a very, very unique scoring setting. it's 2 quarterbacks, and there's also some negative points for quarterbacks. And so basically quarterbacks is what gets you there. And I have Patrick Mahomes and Jalen Hurts. So I'm not doing too bad in that end. I've got like no running backs, but it's a type of league where the quarterbacks can just carry you. So yeah, I'm in the top 50 and just rolling along, and let's see how far I can make it. Cause I've been in 2 years before this, and it has not gone this well. So draft quarterbacks. If it's a 2 QB league, just draft quarterbacks. I promise it'll work out.
Yeah, that's so years ago, I had a buddy who got me into Scott Fish Bowl playoff. It was just playoff, but literally playoffs, not like the regular season. And it was fun. Like I liked playoff fantasy football stuff. Like it was basically like if you took a player, you can only take the player once.
Yeah.
And so you're like, okay, can I take this guy and hope that he has a good game, but also get eliminated, right? And I need to save a quarterback that I think can get to the Super Bowl. And I need to, it was just this like fascinating way to kind of approach, some kind of competitive fantasy setup, because you're trying to get as many points on the board as possible without using players that you think are going to be in the Super Bowl, so that you have games left, right? I found that fascinating. That was a lot of fun. And then I think this was years ago, and then I think he got really big. This whole thing has kind of blown up, and I've never been in like the regular season one, and I stopped getting the invites for the playoff one, so I don't know if that just stopped or the format stopped or what it was. But yeah, I had to pay into that. That was like a pay thing. So that was fun. I like that sort of thing. It's kind of fun to. I haven't done that in a while, because it's like, you know what, I'm just going to enjoy playoff football.
It's a long year.
It's a long year. I've been doing all this. Fitzy, they actually play Detroit week 17. So it's what championship weeks are. Most championships weeks are on 17. They kind of leave the last week of the year alone, and that the Bears play the Vikings in the last game of the year. So
still can put up some points.
Yeah, I think that'd probably be a lot of points there. So that's all I have, man. You have any final thoughts before we get out of here?
No, I was just gonna say I'd be curious. Just talking about playoff football, like how would you handicap the NFC at this point? Is it Eagles and Cowboys and everyone else, or you got your eye on anyone else after that?
I mean, I think you have to talk about the Niners, right? I think that makes they're looking good. They're going to coast to that division. I think there's not really anybody else. I mean, I think that the Seahawks are kind of going back to the pack, they'll probably be middling, but I think that it's going to be Philly and San Francisco in the championship game. That's where I think. Okay. I still think Philly's the best team, just because they can win in a lot of different ways, and they're balanced in a way that I guess the only other team that would be the 49ers, right? Like I think that they're but Jalen Hurts has just kind of been a revelation with that really talented cast around him. And you look at, to me, we talked about this the other day, where on Bears Over Beers, where the Bears are going to play both the Bills and the Eagles here soon. And you have Josh Allen with that really talented cast around him, right? And you have Jalen Hurts with, I think, an even more talented cast around him. And the way that they can win, right? Jalen Hurts running the football, and then he's got these talented players that he distributes to, and he's grown as a passer. Josh Allen has really grown as a passer, but he's kind of this tank. They're both kind of tanks in a lot of ways. Fields is faster than both of those guys. He can make these wild runs from a speed standpoint that those guys can't. But he can be just as or more effective as a runner at this point, and I think his potential is to be just as or more effective as a thrower than either one of those guys, right? So you see this potential of what the Bears could be if they can put enough around him. And so I get a kick out of watching both of those teams right now, because to me it's like, well, where do the Bears fit in here? Where could they get to in the next couple of years? So for me, I would really love to see a Bills-Eagles Super Bowl. I think that'd be a lot of fun.
Oh, for sure. And yeah, I mean, you just need an offense that will support these players and play to their strengths when you're talking about Fields. I mean, that's what both Hurts and Allen have gotten. And, it's just not one size fits all type, offenses for quarterbacks these days. You've got to use your advantages. I know there's probably a lot of people out there that would say Jalen Hurts has never done anything in the playoffs. And, Lamar Jackson's never done anything in the playoffs. And you got to be able to throw when it gets to, January, February. And that's true to some extent. But there's a lot of different ways to score points in the NFL. And that's kind of why I've always been higher on Fields than Zach Wilson. Like, I at least know that there are traits there with Justin Fields that are stand out, like one of a kind. And I will take my chances with those sorts of players every single time. I mean, that's even why, like, Chase Claypool, not to be all Bears here, but like, I've always gone back to him as I feel like he was a kind of undervalued player for dynasty leagues, because I at least know there's some talent there. There's some measurables there that you can't just find anywhere. So yeah, let's use these players in the most efficient way possible and let the chips fall where they may, It's
a good way to end it, man. I love it. All right, man. We'll take care, everybody. And we'll see you here next week, and hopefully we'll stack some more wins.